Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the P-LotPodcast. John here, once again, joined by the main man himself, Michael. We are the P-LotPodcast. The Michael, we've done this show for 4.5 years.
We have been searching for a
We
championship.
yes, yes, we've
The teams have been good, for the most part.
so
All of them,
yes,
except
and
Flyers.
honestly,
Well, the
like
Flyers started good when
when
we
we
started the
started this
show.
during COVID, it was like the Phillies were in contention for one of the eight
It was
playoff
Girardi.
spots in the short. Excuse me.
In the
The
shortened
short.
season, it was the Eagles were in, like, week 3. Did we start it before I think we started, like, week 3 of the NFL season.
Right.
I wanna say that's right. I think the Flyers were in the midst or had just lost in the bubble of the second round of the playoffs to the New York Islanders. The Sixers had just gotten, like, swept by the Celtics in the bubble, but it was different. Ben was hurt. It was we were, getting Al Horford new. We just hired Daryl Morey, like, it was like, "Oh." Um, but the Eagles were in the midst of the worst season the franchise has had, since Andy Reid's last season, and, it's saying a lot considering what they normally are. And yeah, we started it then. I would say general vibes were pretty low. Um, the Eagles were terrible. The Phillies still had Girardi, and the Sixers still had Doc, and the Flyers just lost in the playoffs. We were optimistic about them, and that was about it. Um, and how quickly things turned around for some of the teams, not so much the others. But after 4 years, going on 5, we finally get to celebrate a championship, specifically a Super Bowl championship, a domination for our Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, and honestly, this the 2024 Eagles, definitely the most dominant team in franchise history. I know if you were to like go back to like the 40s and the 1940s when they won back-to-back NFL championships, those were obviously very good teams, very stacked teams, but you know, there were like other dominant teams around that era as well. But like from week 5 when they went on their bye week until the Super Bowl. So basically from October till February, they were the most dominant team by a large margin in professional football.
Yeah, I mean, I've me and my roommate Nick, good friend Nick, roommate Nick, um, we have been on the hunt for we were picky. This is a picky thing to say, but we wanted a championship, obviously, but we wanted one championship in our lives to be like the FU team, like the team that was simply just better than everybody else. And, the whole time everyone's trying to make an excuse, everyone's trying to rationalize them losing somehow. And ultimately, they just kill everybody. And there's nothing to say but to just give them credit after the fact because there was no doubt, there was no whatever. And we thought we were getting that in 2022, dominating the Giants, dominating the 49ers in the playoffs. They were blowing teams out. It was just a demolition of a season. We thought that's what that was. Obviously, it all came crashing down. And, like, quietly, this Eagles team was that, like you said, after, the bye week, before pre-bye through the Browns game, I would say, was rather frustrating as fans to enjoy. You win the Browns game, Sirianni's yelling at fans, the game was way too close, you honestly coulda lost, blocked field goal, it was just ugly, the offense was terrible, you were only hitting some one-on-one balls down the sideline, was the only way you were moving the ball, Saquon couldn't get going. And then from that moment on, it was just pure domination every single week, Jalen played the whole game, and it was great. It was perfect. You dominated some of the best teams in the league. You dominated playoff teams. It was fantastic, and it so quietly snuck up on us. And entering the playoffs through the NFC Championship game, we were talking about the Super Bowl, and we were like, "What would need to happen in order for us to call this an FU season? How do they need to win the Super Bowl?" And we're like, I guess if they blow them out, we're like, but it's so hard to blow out the Chiefs. I guess if they win by like 20 or 30, but it was so like almost tongue in cheek, like it's just not going to happen. And then, oh my God, did it basically happen? It was 40-6, John, 34-0. It was truly as dominant of a Super Bowl as I've watched. And like Nick Sirianni does, a man that does have humbleness in him from time to time, but especially in these situations, taking his foot off the gas. You know, third downs in opponent territory, just running the ball, handing the ball off, not throwing it because they're up so big, taking out all the starters and putting in the backups, just to, be able for them to be able to say, I played in a Super Bowl that we won. Good guy, Nick Sirianni, letting the score get closer than it was. Even then, the score was still a rather massive blowout. But it was it was the FU season, and the Eagles were just far and away, like you said, the most dominant and best team for a very long portion of the season.
Yeah, especially when you factor in like like the Eagles had the fewest yards gained by penalties. Like it
Mhm.
wasn't like the Eagles won a game because there was a controversial penalty
No,
called,
not that I can remember, no.
or
They weren't getting like, there were penalties that very much aided them, but they were penalties, and it was usually, like, 1, and it was because the other team did something stupid. That's usually, a Rams game, those players kept, hitting late out of bounds, late the Chiefs game, they started getting frustrated, Commanders game, those guys were hitting
yeah,
late,
like
like, it was
when
just
Nick
dumb.
Bolton leveled Saquon like after the whistle,
After
you
about 3
you,
steps, like,
you didn't see Spagnuolo yell at the ref saying, "What the hell is that?"
he was looking at Nick Bolton saying,
He
"What the
looked
hell
at
are you
Nick Bolton.
doing?"
You saw on camera. He was like, "What the f are you doing? He's
Yeah.
like, you're acting like an effing idiot. Calm
Yeah,
down. What are
they
you?"
they lost they lost their heads, the Eagles snatched their soul, in every facet of the world, so I guess it's time to talk about the game itself. From jump.
Can I, before we start for the game, there's something
Yeah,
I want to bring up beforehand, which I think
okay.
will lead into the game from what I've been reading a lot about. Obviously, we've been digesting tons of Eagles related content, right? Like before the
Yes.
game, obviously. I've been going the other way because I was just very curious, about what went into what Kansas City's mind going into the game. I think this is going to kind of explain what happened, not to take away from what the Eagles did, obviously, but just to kind of
Mhm.
show you
Yeah.
why this is a dominant team. So, why this Eagles team is so dominant, one of the most dominant teams we've seen in the Super Bowl era, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
So, Louis Riddick interviewed Andy Reid the Friday before they left to get on the plane to New Orleans.
What did he interview
And
him for? Oh,
he just,
sorry. I was
sorry.
when you said interview, I was thinking, like, for a job. I was like, "What?"
Oh no, he was just like for ESPN. So he would have talking points on the broadcast, because he
Yeah.
does like the pregame show, right?
Yeah.
or like on the various talk shows on ESPN. He says, "So, like, what's your key?" So he's like, "So what do you guys need to do in this game in order for you to win?" Very
Mhm.
softballish question, right? He could
Mhm.
have said, "Oh, we need to get Patrick going. We need to get our passing game going," or like, yeah, we need to, we need our protections to hold up because the Eagles have a very dominant front four.
Mhm.
But we held off the Bills and the Texans, whatever, right? Where he says, "Oh, we need to match the Eagles' intensity." And then, which is a very normal thing to say for like two teams, right? And I'm thinking, and reading about that, and I'm like, they're the two-time defending Super Bowl champions.
Yeah, like, if you can't get up for this, I'm not really sure what you can get up for. I guess you couldn't get up for it because you were just comfortable? I don't know. Like,
Or knowing that this team you're playing, like you're not,
you don't
they're
they're
you
just
don't
better than
possess an
you.
advantage.
Yeah, I guess that's totally you're right. Like, that's when the biggest thing that you feel like you can control, I guess, is the fact that there is the intensity aspect of it. Not saying you've already lost, but you're clearly, like, looking at this game as an uphill battle. It's like if you asked Andy Reid to make the line for the game, he's like, "Alright, let's give the Eagles, like, Eagles minus 3.5 or something." Like, if you based on that answer, the way he felt, clearly that between whatever I'm not saying he didn't believe in his team or whatever, obviously he does, but that is very interesting that the first thing that you go to is to say, "We need to match their intensity." This is a team that you just watch how the Eagles play. They are a violent football team, they are very intense, they are very, like, attack on both sides of the ball, very just run through you, not around you, and, well, the Chiefs did not match the Eagles' intensity, the entire time. Not even close, not even a little bit.
So, and this is the other quote. I'm sure you've read this. I think this is what I thought this is the craziest thing I've ever read
Mhm.
in regards to Patrick Mahomes. This is an actual ESPN story. When a
Okay.
coach realizes his quarterback could be the greatest of all time, should it be a feeling of pure joy, right? Not in the case of Kansas City Chiefs Patrick Mahomes. It makes it so much more stressful, Chiefs passing game coordinator Joe Blymeyer told ESPN on Wednesday of Super Bowl week. You feel the burden as a coach and as you're putting a game plan together to not waste his abilities, to not go through a season where you don't give him the opportunity, to not screw it up as a coaching staff. So rather than feeling like this is unbridled excitement that we could do anything, it's actually more like a terror. Like we cannot be the reason that we screwed this guy up or this team up.
Coaching out of fear?
In other
Hmm.
words, in other words, they don't. Patrick Mahomes might not know how to really read a defense.
Oh my god. I don't know if
Is that
that's
what that means? I don't know what that means.
well, it was interesting because this will lead into the game too. I saw Chiefs fans saying, like, we traded up and drafted a quarterback with, like, the arm talent of gods to replace Alex Smith to, in just 8 seasons, turn him into Alex Smith. And it was interesting. You look at the Chiefs' game plan, what it's been all season, which has been they throw. They throw all the time. They could not run successfully all year. Kareem Hunt was their leading rusher, and he averaged 3.8 yards a carry. You can't run the ball. Pacheco didn't really look like himself all year when he got back from injury. Samaje Perine's more of like a receiver back. Kareem Hunt clearly past his best days. Still an effective player, but you get what I'm saying. The Chiefs like threw the ball more than any team in football. When they were ahead, they converted most like third and 4th down and 6 plus out of any team in the league. Like, they were just such a successful passing team, and a lot of it, like we saw, no one I think was blown away by Patrick Mahomes this year, but a lot of it was all the underneath stuff. Mahomes completed like 26 of his passes or 26% of his passes on the year, like behind the line of scrimmage. Like, that's just the design that their offense became, that we're going to kill you underneath. We're going to just scheme guys open the whole time. And we know that Mahomes is good enough and accurate enough that he's not going to miss the throws. It's like I always will go back to this example. The Chargers Jags playoff game where the Chargers blew a 27-0 lead. They didn't run the ball the entire second half, basically. And they were basically just asking Justin Herbert to hit a bunch of 7 to 9 yard passes to finish the game out. And that's just not an easy thing to do. He couldn't do it. They lost. There's only been 2 quarterbacks in NFL history that, well, I wouldn't only 2, but there's like very clear 2 quarterbacks in NFL history who are able to do that and are very successful, have been very successful doing that, and it's Patrick Mahomes and it's Tom Brady. It's a very short list of quarterbacks that you can just rely on them perfectly hitting their receivers right as the ball is snapped, right when they hit the top of their drop every single time and not blink once. It's very difficult to win that way, and the Chiefs had great success doing that this year. They went 15-2. They only had one regular season loss with their starters playing. You know, I'm not one to criticize how they succeeded all year, but I think what Chiefs fans are frustrated about, and like you're alluding to, I think it's like you're putting a cap on Mahomes for no reason. I mean, we saw it at the end of the game, him just uncorking his arm and throwing a really nice ball to Xavier Worthy for that deep ball touchdown. Granted, it's against backup safeties, but that's still a ridiculously good throw in a very tight window that he dropped in there. It's very impressive. And I think that, like, you're allowed to do that in the first quarter of a game. You're allowed to do that in the middle of the game. You don't have to wait till, all right, we're down 30 points. Let's just F it, have Patrick throw a bomb this
Yeah, but
play.
my but here's my thing, and this is kind of what got. This is where I said this to our cousin Joe in
Mhm.
texts. Like, this is probably like Andy Reid's like worst coaching job with the Chiefs, where they got to the Super Bowl, in my opinion, because he
Oh,
had
yeah.
he had opportunities to be burned, and he just didn't. They just didn't happen.
Mhm.
Where with this, it was like he walked into a buzzsaw, and either he knew he was walking into a buzzsaw and he knew there was nothing he could do as a coach to prevent it, or he arrogantly thought that if they just played their game, that they would just beat the Eagles like they did everybody else this season, because they beat everybody there was to beat that they could play, right?
Yeah,
Their
you're
only
right.
regular season loss of note was the Bills, and then they beat them in the playoffs anyway, Michael.
They beat every team that they played this year.
Right. And it turns out that upon further review, the AFC isn't that good.
I think the Eagles are just that good. I think it's less about the AFC being not as good, and it's just the Eagles are just that much better than everybody else. Because I think if the Chiefs played in the NFC, the same thing would have happened, and the Eagles just, would have taken care of business. But I think they can beat the Commanders, they can beat, the Rams and the Lions, all that sort of crap. Um, but yeah, they thought that they could just play their normal game, and their defense could keep them in it, and they'd be able to move the ball as needed. But it
Yeah,
was
so
it
let's
was a
just so
bad, yeah.
so
From the
just
start of the game, it was very evident that the Eagles were going to be like just the aggressor, the forcer of the issues. And I loved going for it on 4th and 2. Absolutely loved it. And with AJ Brown being so effective and dominant on slant routes, it's made their 50-50 go balls not even 50-50. It's like 90-10, probably 95-5. But what they when they're so effective, especially in short yardage situations, you're making the corners, great corners. Trent McDuffie, all-pro level corner. Marshawn Lattimore, former, probably he was an all-pro, I think, at one point. But these guys are guessing. Like, these guys are playing the slant before the snap, and, like, in their mind, like, I'm not getting beat by a slant on this big down. 4th and 2, McDuffie's like, "I'm taking the fricking slant away." And what does Brown do? He's just so physical that he runs through your contact, and now it's a go ball, and now he has you stacked. He has you beat, and Jalen Hurts is like a top 3 deep ball player in the league, if not the best, and he puts it exactly where it needs to be. They convert. Awful offensive pass interference call to screw it. I think everyone, all Eagles fans across the world, all NFL fans across the world, I think thought the game was over if that was how it was going to be officiated. It was like, okay, the Eagles cannot do anything if they are going cannot do anything today if that's how they're going to be calling penalties. Nick once again brought up when that happened, he brought up a podcast from it was Evan Turner, Andre Iguodala, and I think maybe Matt Barnes. It
I
was
know
like his
exactly what
podcast.
you're referring to.
It was before Game 7. Like, they were talking about this, like, last year or something like that. But it was when 2012, when the Sixers played the Celtics in the second round of the playoffs. If anyone's seen Uncut Gems, like that time period of that series, before Game 7, Elton Brand came up to Evan Turner. Evan Turner and all the young guys, Drew Holiday, they're
Drew
all like,
Holiday,
we're excited. We got this,
Spencer
man. Game
Hawes.
7, Game 7, we're in there. We got a shot, man. We're gonna give it our whole thing. And Elton Brand calmly says to them, "Well, you got to win by 20 if you want to win by 2." And they're like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And he's like, "Look at what is at stake here. LeBron's already in the conference final with the Heat. Do you think they want a Heat Sixers conference final, or do you think they want a Heat Celtics conference final? LeBron has great history against the Celtics in the playoffs. What do you think they want?" And the players are like, well, what's wrong with us? And they're like, "Listen, I'm just letting you know, if we want to win Game 7, we need to win by 20 in order to win by 2, meaning we need to dominate them so badly that no amount of officiating Fugazi shadiness can affect the game that badly, or else it would be like a league-wide investigation on the game. They need to be killing the Celtics by like 25 points in the fourth quarter in order for them to actually win the game. If it's a close game, if it's back and forth, if they're on the fence, all those close calls are going to go the Celtics' way, and they're going to lose. Okay, my point in saying that was the terrible call against the AJ Brown, and it was just like, okay, if the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl, clearly they're not going to get any of the ticky tack close calls in a close game like they didn't last time, and they're going to need to dominate them. And boy, did they dominate them. They punt, they get a first down, the Chiefs, and then have to punt it back. The Eagles were gifted the makeup call on, Goddard getting hit in the face, which I just did not think was a penalty either. Jahan Dotson getting open on a Jalen Hurts audible for a first down at the goal line, and then the tush push. Jalen throws a bad pick, but he doesn't phase at all. He made one bad play the entire game, a
As
free
as
rusher.
as CBS Sports and Tony Romo will call it, that was a arm punt.
Yeah, although they were at like the 30-yard line, so it wasn't great, but definitely took points off the board.
Right, but like if you think about it this way, let's
He just
say
couldn't step into his throw. Like, he
it was
wanted
like
to
I
go
mean,
deep.
listen, it was Spags. I mean Spags dialed up a pretty good blitz,
Yeah,
and Jalen Hurts didn't pick it up at the line of scrimmage. He couldn't adjust it over. Plus Cameron Jurgens clearly was not 100%,
no, he was
and
not. You got a free runner, and he couldn't step into his throw, and it was underthrown. It was picked. Didn't matter. Chiefs had to quickly punt it back. Eagles got their field goal. pick six. Cooper DeJean.
But the silver lining was the Chiefs had the ball at their own like 2 yard line ish, two
Yeah,
yard line.
they didn't go anywhere. They had to punt.
And if you get a 3 and out, you get the ball back
Great field
with really
position.
good field position.
Yeah, and they set themselves up. Got a field goal. It was just, I think about this game and it's like my favorite part is definitely the stretch of defensive plays leading up, to the pick six, going sack, pick six was just unbelievable. Getting those 2 sacks, and it's like, God damn it, if they didn't play on an ice rink in Arizona, we'd be having so many more different conversations right now. Um, but you just getting those 2 sacks, it was like, oh my god, like it was visceral. It was so exciting. It was like, oh my god, I've wanted to him to get drilled and sacked for years, and I'm finally feeling like I'm getting it, like I'm experiencing what I need to experience.
Well, so what I noticed with Mahomes during this game a lot, and this is kind of what kind of happened throughout the whole game, Michael, is you said that they basically put a governor. You know what a governor is?
Like a
So
government official.
a governor is back in the day when people would get caught speeding, like would put something called a governor in the person's engine, which won't let them exceed a certain speed.
Oh, okay.
It's called a governor, right?
Interesting.
And when I say they put a governor
Educational
on,
show.
yeah, they put a governor on. In other words, he's like check down. He's like check down Charlie.
He gets
And
rid of the ball
Michael, we said
immediately.
this. We said this during the Commanders game. We were doing our preview. We were like, man, if the Commanders try to run all those screens that they ran against the Lions, I said, I don't think they're going to work. That the Eagles, because the Eagles are going to scout it out.
Yep.
Did Andy Reid not watch any of the Eagles postseason or any of
It
the
was
film where he's like, God, guys, we can't just be checking the ball down. We need to come up with, we need to
well,
scheme.
honestly, the first play on the Chiefs offense, it felt like they did. They motioned Worthy in a bubble orbital motion, like he was gonna get the screen, and Mahomes gave like a little head fake and immediately threw it to Juju for like a 12-yard gain, a first down, because Cooper DeJean was like so ready for the screen, but the ball never came out. And I was like, that's a really damn good play. If they run a bunch of shit like that, this might be a little frustrating day for us. But then they kind of didn't. Like we talked about what the Eagles' defensive keys were and their game plan. And like you said, Mahomes likes to get the ball out quick. He is throwing the ball, top of his drop, ball's coming out. It was a masterclass against Buffalo, where he was top of his drop, letting it rip. It was, seeing Brady highlights from like 15 years ago, where it was the same sort of thing. Top of his drop, letting it rip, and completion, 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 completion. The Eagles, a huge key to the game was take away his first read. If you take away the first read, not that it's like, oh, he can't read a defense, but it's just your pass rush and your front four is so good that if you take away that first read, odds are he's going to have someone in his face by the time he's trying to get to a second read. He's going to hit the top of his drop first read. It's not there. He's trying to move. You have your tackles that were basically like your pseudo spies, just kind of holding up pass rush lanes, not letting him escape and scramble freely. And your edges were just killing their tackles constantly. So he gets off his first read. Boom, there's Josh Sweat. Boom, there's Jalix Hunt. Boom, there's Brandon Graham. Boom, there's Nolan Smith. And oh, by the way, if you do think you're starting to climb the pocket a little bit, there's Jalen Carter. There's Jordan Davis. There's Milton Williams. There's Moro Jomo. All of them, every single one of them made an impact in the pass rush game. Like all of them had a quarterback hit, all of them had either a sack or hurry, something. drawing a penalty, Brandon Graham getting mugged. It was just it was such a defensive perfection masterclass on every facet of the game.
Would you like to hear a
Pass rush,
stat?
coverage, it was amazing.
Would you like to hear a stat, Michael?
I love stats.
When Patrick Mahomes, his average time to throw is 3.31 seconds or longer.
It's a long time.
In other words, he can't make the initial throw. Like his first
Yes.
option is taken away, and he has to like make second, third, fourth reads.
Just gotta,
He has a record of 2-8. Now 2-9.
because, it's not like he can't make plays. What's the big MO on why everyone thinks Mahomes is so great, why he is so great? It's, "Oh, how did he do that? He was just rolling out of the pocket away from 3 defenders, and he found a man down." Like, he's great at that, but you can't live by that. That cannot be every single play. Those plays are only so great because they're nickel and diming you to death, and then when you finally feel like you're making a play and forcing him out of the pocket, forcing him, to escape, and you think you finally have a win, and then he hits the back-breaking completion, you're like, "Oh my god," it's so demoralizing, and, it just kinda sucks the life out of you. But what do you see with the Eagles? They go sack, sack, he's rolling out to his right, and you're like, "Oh, here's the back-breaking Mahomes completion to convert a first down on 3rd and 16," and Cooper DeJean jumps the route, and he makes a great play, and he returns it.
And by
Like,
the way, on that interception, by the way, he was rolling to his right, throwing across his body to his left, where the receiver was falling down because he was covered,
yeah,
and
he
then
was no one was open, he just forced it.
DeJean just jumped the route
It was a
and then
great
made an
job
amazing play. It was very similar. It reminded me a lot of the Patrick Robinson NFC Championship game
return, yeah.
return pick six from the perspective that it was a really an ill-advised throw.
Well, Keenum was hit, I'll say, and it was wildly underthrown because he was hit by Chris Long in the chest. So I'll give him a little bit more slack. I don't think it was greatly open, but it was totally like it was great communication as we watched that play back. The Chiefs run motion, and Oren Burks is communicating to Zach Bond and like Cooper Jean basically, where telling Bond like you got the flat, like you take care of underneath. I'll have whatever is going on back here. And what that did is Mahomes was expecting Cooper DeJean to come down onto the motion and be in the flat and cover that sort of, that area of the field. So he felt rolling to his right, kind of throwing across his body that it was just gonna be the receiver and the corner, which was, I think, DeAndre Hopkins, or was it Hollywood Brown? I'm not sure. It was whatever receiver
Hollywood Brown.
Against Quinyon Mitchell chasing him across the field, and it's like, I'm gonna throw it and, probably gonna be incomplete, but I'm just gonna take my chance. He never saw DeJean. He never saw DeJean sink back towards the sticks because it was 3rd and 16. He doesn't need to cover underneath. Why does he care? He makes a great play on the ball, makes a great totally like, that was when you saw life flash before their eyes, and then doubling down on that is the following drive. The Eagles forcing a punt, and it's like, "Oh my god, the defense is just unbelievable." And then the Eagles on offense, they stall out, and it's 4th and 2 or 3 at about midfield, and I wanted them to go for it. I wanted them to keep their foot on the gas. I not that I was worried about the defense at all, but I was worried that, like, punting here, if they do somehow get any sort of points, like, that's a huge, like, win in their eyes, that's a huge momentum swing, and they punt, they take the penalty to give them more room, they punt, great punt by Braden Mann, he's had a fantastic season, and the first play is Josh Sweat pile driving Joe Tooney into Patrick Mahomes' like, legs and body, knocking him off his base, makes an inaccurate throw, and Zach Bond makes a freakishly athletic play for a diving interception. Immediately following A.J. Brown touchdown, you felt like the game was simply over. Like, that second interception followed by the touchdown was like, man, like, that was the I was feeling just, oh, so positive, I have to say. I was
It felt like I was watching like a college game where it was like Georgia versus like TCU.
or like Auburn, or yeah, yeah, like a lower like a nice school, probably had a good year, but, like, just totally
Ohio
not in the
State,
same
Indiana.
yeah, like, just totally not in the same class, like, not of the same, you know, abilities.
Sorry,
And
Phelan. My buddy Phelan, he's an Indiana. He
yeah,
went to Indiana. He's a big Indiana guy. Sorry, I made that comp, but like, it's like the super school versus like, like an up and coming school, but like,
Cinderella story, like,
except the underdog school is the defending 2-time national champions.
yeah, so that doesn't really happen too often.
So it's sort of like, what the f is happening? Like,
Yeah, it was
we really bought into and I think this is a take that I kind of have, Michael, that I
mhm.
think, you know, I think if you're a Patriots fan, this idea that Andy Reid's a better coach than like Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I mean, I never
Belichick would have schemed,
Belichick, I think, is the
would have cooked
football
something
coach.
up that would have greatly impeded the Eagles' offense to the point where they might have kept them in the game.
A
It
little
could
bit
have been
longer.
like 24-6, and you're just hoping Brady's just gonna do what Brady does, and they could at least made it closer. Where this was like Andy Reid and like the Chiefs, it's like they've never watched the. It's not like, oh shit, pardon my language. Oh no, this team dropped 38 points on us 2 years ago. We need to stop Jalen Hurts. We need to
Yeah.
not make him just cook us. And he's like, we need to like, I don't know, we need to find underneath parts of their zones so we can matriculate the ball down the field.
Yeah, I mean, they just tried to run their normal stuff and, like, very bad adjustments. I saw Theo Ash do a little breakdown, um, on their offensive tackles. He was like, the way they're getting into their pass sets was very vertical. They were basically almost going straight backwards to get into their pass blocking sets, and all that was doing was just creating a lot of space for the pass rushers, especially on the edge, to generate, like, speed and then converting that speed to power in order to just kinda run through them. Like, obviously, the notable ones is Josh Sweat into Joe Tooney forcing the interception to Bond. Brandon Graham has been doing this, like, at such an elite level for, like, the past decade, where it was the play where he got, like, face masked and then tackled, where he's got room. He looks like he's gonna go for, like, a speed move, and then he just bull rushes you. That speed to power just totally jacks you up, and they were doing that, like, the whole game. Their tackles weren't, like, going out and getting their hands on the pass rushers. Like, that's you look at the way the Eagles tackles play, and obviously they have the best 2 tackles in the sport. There were reps, like, against uh, Brian Baldinger was showing reps of Mailata against Myles Garrett because Myles Garrett said that Mailata was easily the best, tackle he's faced this year, mostly because he's just probably the only person that can actually match his strength. But, like, you watch how Mailata's playing him. Mailata's not getting a bunch of depth, like, "Alright, I'm gonna let Myles Garrett come to me and hit me with whatever, like, destructive moves he has." You saw him get jacked up by Jared Verse because he did that a couple times. You watch Mailata, he goes out, takes almost like a sidestep, and is able to get his hands on him early and punch him first, so Myles Garrett can't get any speed going, can't
You're
generate
just
that
slowing them
speed to
down,
power.
is what you're doing.
Exactly. It's like you get him first, and by the time he's maybe gonna start winning a rep, the ball's probably already out. And the Chiefs were just allowing the Eagles pass rushers and edge rushers to bring the force to them, bring the power, and roll right through them. I mean, it was everybody. Everybody was getting involved, and it was beautiful. It was so, so beautiful to see. Like, the fact that you didn't even say we didn't did Darius Slay's name even get said on the broadcast? I'm so serious. I'm not sure if it did. I don't recall one time hearing them talk about Slay at all. I really don't, because he wasn't thrown at. They couldn't even throw the ball successfully enough or even, like, have the time to even get the ball towards the actual cornerbacks. Everything was so underneath because it had to be, because the pass rush was just that good, that Slay or Quinion weren't even tested the entire game. That's just how dominant it was.
I
Oh,
do I do
it
agree,
was the
Michael. Like
best defensive game I've ever seen in my
remember
life.
in 2022, like Eric Bieniemy had been um Eric Bieniemy was still the OC of the Chiefs in 2022.
Yes.
And he's always given the Eagles problems. Even when
Mhm.
like the Commanders were awful last year, they scored their two highest scoring games against the Eagles in
Yeah.
that kind of Fangio style defense. You know, the Chiefs lost Mike Kafka to the Giants, who's was like Mahomes is like he was like
Mhm.
his Andy Reid went to Brett Favre,
Mhm.
sort of, right? That was like his confidant, so to speak, right? This is kind of like an Andy Reid in trouble with in Philly when he started losing his good coaches, and he
Mhm.
was just not replacing them with good coaches. He was just promoting like their underlings, and they're just not qualified. Like
Matt Nagy.
like Matt Nagy sucks. Like Matt Nagy is not good,
No, he's not.
you
He's
know. And
not
I
good at
kind of
all.
don't blame, and I'm not, and I don't blame, and it's because it's like Vic Fangio, like the divide between like Vic Fangio and like the Chiefs coaches is like massive. And
Yeah,
I
it's like the
think,
Grand Canyon.
and then it's like Andy got embarrassed. He got literally completely outcoached. And it's sort of like, I think with Mahomes, like, I think this idea that, I don't know, like Mahomes obviously has a certain amount of aura to him,
Mhm.
but you saw this year he just wasn't that good. And
Mhm.
it kind of like makes me think, like, I don't know, like Josh Allen had ass coaching, but he was still putting up monster numbers.
Well, I mean, they went to the Super Bowl. Like, that's, like, they they were successful. I just think
But they had so many aura wins where
yeah,
teams would
but the
just
Eagles
psych
are just
themselves
so
out.
much the Eagles are just so much better. That's what the fact of the matter is, and I don't think we really realized it. I think we were like, the Eagles roster is better, but, the Chiefs are the
We
Chiefs, and we
thought
were
that
giving
because we
them
thought that 2 years ago. That didn't
right,
matter.
right, it didn't matter, but I think we were also wrong. The Eagles were better, but they weren't that much better.
No, I think it's the Eagles' coaching was better.
Yeah, their players the oh, I mean, the defense is just it gets me so giddy, like, I
I
think about
also
how well
think
the
too,
defense played
Michael,
that day.
and I also think too that I think a lot of people on social media and a lot of these like dudes who post film and break down film all day,
Mhm.
I think we are overrating schemes and not really taking it into account. Like you still need players.
Yeah, I mean, Theo Dillo breakdown too, he's like, it's not just the Eagles gave us a nice reminder that, it's not just the X's and O's, but it's the Jimmies and the Joes, and, like, the Eagles, as great as the Fangio scheme is, and clearly he is the master architect of what modern defense should look like. The players matter absurdly. I mean, the Eagles drafted 2, like, all pros this year in the draft. Simply unbelievable. Reed Blankenship and CJ Gardner-Johnson, while neither are like a superstar, they're what? Like a top 10, maybe top 5 safety duo in the league? Like, just 2 very, very, very solid players that play physical and have good ball skills. Like, it's just they have nice traits that are very important to have as safeties. You got a 33-year-old corner in Slay that is, again, playing at an all-pro level. You had, like, 3 all-pro level defensive backs. That's unbelievable.
Well, not just that
Defensive
too.
player of the year caliber
Well, not just that too.
linebacker.
Isaiah Rogers and Keely
Yes.
Ringo could probably get play starter reps on some
Isaiah
teams.
Rodgers, his versatility also being able to play in the slot as well when they run dime packages. Isaiah Rodgers, I think, could start on probably like every other team in football, at least somewhere, whether it's the outside or the nickel. He could probably start on every other team in the league. And he was like, the first corner up off the bench that, and he had to play a decent bit. Slay got banged up every now and then. He's old, he gets banged up. But every time Rodgers came in, simply didn't miss a beat. He got beat in the Rams game where all he had to do was just reel in the interception. He had like 2 of them that he just couldn't bring home because of the snow and crap. So he's been incredible as well. Yeah. You got defensive player of the year caliber players on the line and in the linebacker position. Oren Burks, who went as like was the was virtually the number one reason the 49ers lost the Super Bowl last time. Where, when Dre Greenlaw gets out of the game, he was picked on mercilessly, just absolutely abused. And that's a testament to the coaching, poor coaching on their end, because I'm sitting here shaking in my boots thinking that Oren Burks is like, you know,
The weak
gonna be
link
the
in the
worst
chain.
linebacker in, like, the history of the NFL and be potentially so bad that he actually ruins what a great defense we have. Idiot me forgetting that Vic Fangio is clearly some sort of linebacker whisperer and was able to get him in a spot where he didn't miss a beat. I don't know. It's like Nakobe Dean went down and you didn't feel it. It didn't
Clearly, when
feel
Oren
like he
Burks
was
came
injured.
in, so the thing with the Fangio defense is a lot of these guys have to watch a ton of film and just react and know what to do in certain situations. Where if
Mhm.
you're a backup, like you're obviously like not working with the ones, so communication is really important. So that's why we would see guys when they would come in when a guy would get injured and look really bad. But if
Mhm.
they had to fill in and start for a game, like they wouldn't be as bad,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's for like the whole team too, because like when Fred Johnson came in when
Fred
Mailata
Johnson
got hurt,
played both tackle positions. He played for Lane and he played for Mailata this year. And he was damn good, man. He was so good.
because that's like because like that's kind of my point is like this team is very big on preparation, and it's like sucks when the guy has to kind of come in and it's like you need to kind of settle in a little bit, you know.
Yeah,
But with Oren Burks, like I think he's a free agent. Like he's going to get a contract somewhere to start just based off the last 3 games he's played.
probably. I mean, what did Sirianni say when they signed him? They were like, "This is the best like 4th linebacker that you can have, or whatever, 3rd linebacker you can have." He's like, he's a special teams ace, clearly, forcing the fumble against the Packers. Um, But he's, like, also just a really nice depth linebacker to have, and God, he was playing at a really, really high level when Nakobe Dean went down, and that was just it was amazing. I can't I could gush about the defense all day. I mean, Jordan Davis picking up a sack on Mahomes, getting sacks on 2 of the most elusive quarterbacks in football in the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl, truly obscene. I don't know if Clint Hurt is, like, the defensive version of Jeff Stoutland, but, like, he just might be. I don't know. Like, I guess there's a chance that we've found something truly remarkable. Um, and he's saying, there's another gear
He's
with
a Pete
Jordan
Carroll guy,
Davis.
Clint Hurt.
Yeah. We're like, there's another gear with Jordan Davis that we have yet to unlock, and I think it's, like, the pass rusher, which if he probably's gotta, like, lose a little bit more weight. He's already lost a ton since he come into the league and has made himself a lot quicker. But if he loses, like, a little bit more weight and starts getting, like, some effective pass rush moves, which, I don't think it'll be too difficult considering he's just enormous and can kind of throw people around with one hand. If Jordan Davis gets like 4.5, 5 sacks next year, I'm not sure what I'm gonna be able to think. Like it's gonna be like truly like cinema watching the D line dominate again next year. I'm so excited for the defense and the future of this defense for like quite a while.
Right, me too. Now, let's just kind of push through the rest of the game, and then we can kind of then talk about a lot of the
Yeah, I
aftermath.
want to gush. Well, I want to gush about the offense too. I want to gush about
So, all
Jalen.
right. So, Eagles get up 24-0 into
At
halftime.
halftime.
We're and I, I'll be honest, I'm thinking like, we need to approach the second half like it's nothing, nothing. Like I'm
Yeah, I'm
still
thinking
thinking
this first
28 to
drive.
3 is still kind of fresh in my mind watching that when the
Yeah,
Patriots were down 28 to 3. Second half starts, Michael. Ooh. Uh
like I'm sitting there like this first drive, this first Chiefs drive is the most important drive of the season. You cannot go out there and basically concede 8 points, let them get down and score a touchdown, get the 2-point conversion. Because, they'll think that, like, "Alright, th this game is right here for us," and, dude, they forced another punt. Like, they forced another punt. Eagles get a field goal, and 27-0. Clearly, it's like the Chiefs are not punting unless it is egregious. Like, it is, "We need to go. We have no choice."
I thought they should have went for a fourth down on their first drive because
Well,
at
what
that
was
point
it? What was it, like, 4th and it was long. It wasn't
it's a
short.
fourth and 7, but it's
I
sort
thought it
of
was,
like,
like, 4th
dude,
and 9.
I don't know,
Was
like
it? I forget. Let's see. We're only talking football today, so there's no worry. What are these are awful websites. Give me football reference. There we go. Okay. Super Bowl 59. Okay. Full play-by-play. Third quarter, first drive. 6-yard run, 8-yard completion, first down. Jordan Davis sack. Second and 11. Second and 11, Josh Sweat sack. Third and 17. Third and 17, Patrick Mahomes running for his life,
scramble.
scrambles for 8 yards, fourth and 9. Fourth and 9 on their own 45-yard line. It was very in between. If it was like fourth and 5, I
Michael,
think they would have
honestly,
gone.
that was to me. It's like we have no confidence we can draw up a play that could pick up nine
Yeah.
yards.
Yeah, it was like we honestly, you're probably right. It's like I can't fathom having
If
enough
that was the
protection to
Eagles,
get
you would be
9
like,
yards.
we have Devontae Smith, Saquon, Dallas Goddard, AJ.
AJ,
You can't draw up a
someone's
play
gotta get
to
open.
get
Yeah.
10 yards.
Well,
That would be our mentality.
yeah. And then, um, second half, first drive of the offense, that's when Hurts, if he was able to lead Barkley a little bit more, would have had another touchdown. But then they stalled out, and they ended up kicking a field goal. And then the biggest, 27-0. It's a full 4 possession lead at this point, and Chiefs really sensing the pressure at this point. They hit Hopkins for a first down. They're
They're moving the ball pretty good.
they're moving the ball. Another 6-yard run,
They're
second
up
and 4.
27-0 though, because the Eagles kicked the field goal the previous drive.
Yeah. Second and 4. That's when Brandon Graham gets absolutely mugged, and you get second and 14. They try to run it, and you only get a yard. Third and 14. Sorry, third and 13. They hit Kelsey for 9 yards, and it's fourth and 4. Game on the line. I'll be honest. I see Avonte Maddox going in. I'm like, what is happening? Why is he on the field? Where's Isaiah Rodgers? Did he get hurt? Why is it not him? I am upset. I'm like, what is going on? They're gonna pick on him. I was just not looking forward to it at all. I see the motion over there. I'm like, I was in the middle of MFing him while the ball was in the air. because I thought he was open. And did I very quickly shut up and celebrate because Avonte Maddox made a fantastic play on the ball,
The biggest
batting it
play of his
down.
career.
Yeah, since, like, the 2018, Rams game where he had some big plays in that game. That game will
So
forever
yeah,
live in my
so
memory,
you
but
know what's funny
makes
about that with him being in there? I wonder if Fangio, because Cooper DeJean like hurt his foot or something. But to your point, why isn't Isaiah
well,
Rodgers
DeJean
out
was in the game. It was they were in dime. They had 2 multi they had both,
or
they had
Ringo,
multiple
right?
DBs. I was expecting, uh I was expecting Rodgers, and I think Rodgers
Do
might
you
have been banged
remember in the
up.
Bengals game when they put N'Kobe Dean in the slot on Jamar Chase
Mhm,
and Joe Burrow was like, okay, Jamar's not the go-to guy, but look at this matchup we have right here. Like should be an easy completion. So I'm going to not go to my first read. I'm just going to force this ball to
yeah.
Jamar Chase because he's going to win this rep, right?
Yeah, yeah,
If you look at that, if you watch that playback, Justin Watson was in motion. He is the designed receiver on the play because
mhm,
he is wide open on that play, Michael, underneath,
yeah,
right? But what does Mahomes do? He sees Avonte Maddox on DeAndre Hopkins, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna win. This guy sucks." Because we've watched him on tape just get burned every time he's out in the field, right?
mhm,
And he
yeah.
throws like he makes a good throw. He throws it's on the out route, like it's where it's supposed to be. It's just that Avonte Maddox
Made a great play, made a
baited
great
him
play on the ball.
into throwing that ball.
Yeah, and then what was the game sealer at this point, Kevin Burkhardt gives a pretty nice call, looking to run some clock or maybe throw the dagger,
That
and
to me, from a national broadcast, in my opinion, that is the greatest call I've ever heard for a Philadelphia sports team. That's ahead of the swing of his
that's
life.
ahead of Joe Davis.
That's ahead of Joe Davis because
Lightning
the
strikes.
whole sequence is they're up 27 nothing. You're thinking, oh, they're gonna do what the Eagles are gonna do what
They're
they
gonna kill the
always do.
3rd quarter out,
They're just
run the
gonna like
ball.
they did all season. We're just gonna chew up clock,
I mean, there
pick
was
up
2 minutes and
first,
47
maybe
seconds in the
kick another
quarter.
field goal. We're up 30 to nothing, and the Chiefs are down 5 possessions, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead, it's the way he says it, it's maybe it hurts maybe to choose some clock or
Yeah,
maybe
looking to
throw the
ru
dagger
it
deep
was
to Devontae Smith. You know,
it was perfect. It was truly and this is gonna be my segue at this point, um, because at once it got to 34 nothing, Chiefs get their first touchdown, nonsense, Eagles get another field goal, uh,
I'll be right back,
then they get
Michael. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
then they get the strip sack, game finishes out. Okay. What I want to gush about now is Jalen Hurts, is the quarterback. He was so, so good, obviously all year and stuff, but especially on Sunday. And what is so great about him, and we'll probably talk about quarterback rankings or whatever, and that sort of discourse. I'm not going to say he's number 2 or whatever, but man, it's really coming down and raining hard. What he is so good at is his preparation and pre-snap abilities is truly up there with one of the best, if not the best in football at this point. Um, Brady was doing a interview or podcast episode, rate whatever, with Colin Cowherd during Super Bowl week, and he said, my superpower was that I just I knew everything that the defense was throwing at me. I prepared so well that I knew whatever way a guy was looking, I knew he was blitzing. And he's like, the only easy or very beneficial thing about being a quarterback is that you don't have to snap the ball until you're ready, until you know what's coming. And Jalen Hurts has been doing that all playoff run. They don't give him the credit because it's running plays or whatever, but like Rams game, for example, Jalen Hurts orchestrated 3 long touchdown runs, 1 by himself and 2 from Saquon Barkley, by checking the play at the line of scrimmage, by changing the play at the line of scrimmage. He reading the defense, seeing a better matchup here, changing to it, and big plays happen. And he did in the Super Bowl multiple times. All we heard was, "Oh, those Spags blitzes, they're gonna get you. They're gonna, you know, catch them off guard." And they had a few, but Jalen Hurts was ready for just about all of them, and every big play you can think of, he was making a check for it. The big play to Jahan Dotson in the second drive of the game, he sees the blitz coming. He's looking at that, inside D-back who looks, when people say, base runner on first, he's looking runnerish. That guy was looking like blitzerish. He looked like he was coming, and he knew, okay, if this guy's gonna come, then which was the safety. If this guy's gonna come, or no, sorry, if this slot corner's gonna come, this safety's got to come down and pick up this guy, and the other safety's got to rotate to the center of the field. Meaning, on the outsides, I have one-on-one, and I have whatever matchup I want to take, basically. And he gives the little head tap. The receivers give the head tap. They knew it was coming. Jalen takes the snap. He sets. Jahan Dotson wins his route, hits the top of his drop, drops a dime. Great throw. First and goal, tush push, touchdown. On a third down, and I think it was like 3rd and 9, Jalen's reading the defense, seeing so many lights, gives the little gun signal, the trigger signal to A.J. Brown, takes a snap, top of his drop, back shoulder, perfect throw. A.J. Brown, another job. Jalen changing the play, editing the play, changing it to something that what he wants to see, what he likes to see. And I think like the cream of the crop, we just talked about the Devonta Smith play. It's Nick Sirianni on the sideline, like almost annoyingly begging Kellen, just call it. We score, the game's over. Just call it. So I think they had a run play called, and the check play was the deep ball to Devonta Smith. Jalen Hurts comes out. He's surveying the defense. He sees Eric Reed, the safety, start creeping up towards the line of scrimmage, and he's like, okay. He's like, we got it. Gives the signal. Saquon's giving the signal too to make sure everyone's seeing it. Devonta Smith acknowledges it. He loves the matchup he sees. Play action. Everyone on the Chiefs defense bit on the fake. You see everybody bite on it. Devonta Smith runs the post route, kills his man one-on-one. And again, Jalen Hurts, the best deep ball thrower in football, drops one more dime. And, A.J. Brown's got his arms up. He knows it's going to be a touchdown. And he perfectly throws it again. But once again, it's Jalen Hurts pre-snap, reading the play, knowing what, blitzes were coming, knowing they were going to bite on the run, and changing it to a great, great pass play. And what do you hear about Jalen Hurts all the time? Oh, we can't read a defense, can't do this. What Jalen Hurts maybe is not great at is like the post snap going through 1, 2, 3, 4 progressions before getting to a guy. That might not be his biggest strength. So what does he do to mitigate that, I guess, weak part of his game is to be so, so, so good pre-snap and knowing where you're going to want to go with the ball because you know what the defense is doing and you know you can change the play. When you can mitigate that with just your brain power before the snap, it makes your life so much easier. And it's, yeah, he's not Tom Brady, but it's like you look at that's what Tom Brady made a living off of, knowing what the defense was doing and saying, all right, I know I got this look. I know I'm going to have Gronk up the seam. I got this look. I know I'm going to have Edelman on the out route. I know I'm going to have Deion Branch here. I know I'm going to have Randy Moss there. I know I'm going to have Amendola or Wes Welker, Aaron Hernandez, whoever. He knew what he was going to get. So that's why it's so many great Brady highlights are snap, 1, 2, 3, set, fire. Jalen Hurts, you look at his best passing plays, they don't come like Josh Allen's or Lamar Jackson's or Patrick Mahomes of look at him break a sack and roll to the right and turn back to the left and flick their arm, and it's a beautiful 40-yard dime down the field. How did they do that? That's special stuff. And I agree. It's very impressive, very high-level play. But Jalen Hurts' great passing plays are 1, 2, 3. I'm letting it fly because I know what look the defense gave me, and I know I'm very accurate, and I'm going to hit a perfect throw. And he did it so many times on deep balls to A.J. Brown, deep balls to Devontae Smith, over routes from Dallas Goedert, drag routes, whatever. Just knowing where to go with the football and being that prepared and that locked in and that just ready. I think that needs to be celebrated a little bit more. That's the sort of stuff that is super highly impressive stuff. And just because it doesn't look pretty, because it doesn't look like this superhuman play, it doesn't get the credit, even though it should, because it's just wildly impressive to be able to see what Chiefs defenders, Steve Spagnuolo draws the most exotic blitzes in like NFL history, one of the best D coordinators ever at that, in big downs to get you off the field, to get you behind the sticks, to force, turnovers or bad plays, whatever, and to just avoid them so excellently by knowing when it's coming, changing a play to beat it because you see it. And he did it all game. And he did it at such a high level. And he's been doing it the entire playoff run, the entire season. Just because he's checking to a run a couple times and people are like, oh, it's Saquon carrying. It's like that play was never going to happen if Jalen Hurts didn't see something and change it. And he deserves a lot more credit than he gets for that. It's very, very impressive. And he does it at a ridiculously elite level.
Yeah, and look, listen, Michael. I think I tweeted this out. I saw you liked it on Twitter. Is I think a major issue right now in I think football discourse is we don't criticize. Well, not criticize. We're criticizing guys that are winning, and we're like praising guys that just choke repeatedly in the playoffs, and we're not putting enough like we're not critiquing them enough. Like this is I guess this is my point is like up until like I don't know, your generation was allowed to just not digging you per se because you're not like this. But like I'm
It's the
seeing
Twitter
like
mob.
I'm seeing the Twitter trolls slash like these kids who like the first good quarterbacks they see are like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and
Hmm.
Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson walk on water, and they can't make any mistakes,
Yep.
and it's not their fault that they lose. It's their coaching, or they don't
Yep.
have a super team. Like Josh Allen isn't playing with like 6 or 7 Pro Bowlers, Michael, or
Right.
like Lamar Jackson hasn't played with the most All Pros anyone's played with in the last 4 years.
Hmm.
It's to me, it's like saltiness. It's basically like you stand these quarterbacks and they just choke and they can't. And it's sort of like
It's like
you look
it,
like it basically like your take is bad, and instead of just owning your bad take, you're like tripling down on it.
yeah, like I think there's different conversations to be had about quarterbacks and whatnot because, like, oh, you rank the best quarterbacks in the league. I'm not going to put Jalen Hurts above Lamar, Allen, or
I'm not
Burrow.
either.
I'm not. But when you're asking me, like, oh, who would you rather have to win a big game? Who would you rather have, you know, in the fourth quarter of a playoff game? And you got to have multiple got to have it drives and putting points on the board and milking clock and, fourth and one, you need to convert. I'm taking Jalen Hurts over a lot of them. And you can, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, those two guys can do a lot of things that Jalen Hurts can't do. They can make freakish plays that not a lot of quarterbacks can do. Very small list. But I will take my quarterback that in the biggest moments and the brightest of lights does not shy down, does not shrink, does not stutter, does not, blink, does not falter. He raises his level of play, and he is just articulate. He's meticulous, and he is precise, and he's really just playing damn good football in the biggest moments of his career. And, you know, credit this to him, I guess, playing at Alabama in big moments or Oklahoma in big moments, but he just has that mentality that the moment is never going to be too big. It is so like I did I did a look me and Nick were doing a look through at um Donovan McNabb and his playoff stats. And, you know, he had in 16 playoff games 28 total touchdowns and 25 total turnovers. And it's like, that's not good. That is
No, that's bad.
25 turnovers in 16 games. You're just not taking care of the ball. He had 3 playoff games in his career without a turnover, and 2 of them he fumbled in the game, but we just recovered the fumble. Jalen Hurts in 9 playoff games has 20 total touchdowns and 4 total turnovers. And I think Donovan's a great quarterback. I think he was very, very good. He's like the Hall of Very Good. He's very, you know, just outside the Hall of Fame sort of guy.
He's like in that Ken Anderson,
Yeah,
like
he's right there. And
he's like
clearly
close.
he's close. And the issue is just that, in big moments, even games he played well in or whatever, you're just turning the ball over. Like that just can't happen. You look at some of those conference championship games, even when the offense wasn't scoring or whatever, it'd be like as long as you don't turn the ball over, you're probably winning some of those games. And it is so reassuring to me, and it sets such a level of calmness through my body that no matter what playoff game that the Eagles are entering, with Jalen Hurts at the quarterback position, I know that the moment is not too big. I know that if Jalen Hurts plays poorly in a playoff game, it's just going to be because he played poorly. Like, it's just gonna be he had a bad game. It's gonna be, the blitz was getting to him. He made a couple bad reads. He, was just, like, inaccurate, that sort of thing. It will never be Jalen Hurts played poorly because he wasn't ready for the moment. I watch these elite quarterbacks in big moments that shrink. Justin Herbert makes throws that I've seen almost no quarterbacks make in his career. But then in the playoffs against Houston, I'm watching him do some of the dumbest crap ever, and it's like, dude, what are you doing? You are one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league, and you're just playing so stupid right now, and it has probably no other reasons other than
Well,
this
that's
is a
why he
big
was the
moment and
third
he can't
quarterback
handle
taken
it.
in 2020, Michael, because when he was on Oregon and they would play big games, he would choke at college. So
Right.
that's why like Burrow and Tua got picked ahead of him,
Yeah.
which sounds
And it
insane for Tua, right? Because you're like, why would
yeah.
they? It's
Well, Tua
because
does not play good in big
Herbert
games
was looked as
either,
a
but
choker in college.
yeah, and it's like I think, with Harbaugh, maybe get that out of him, whatever. But it's like I know that Jalen Hurts isn't going to enter a playoff game and have like a deer in the headlights look where it's like, man, he looks lost out there. He's having a meltdown out there. He's choking it away. No, I know he's going to be calm, cool, collected. And if they lose and it's his fault, it's just because he had an off game. And like I can live with that. That is so much more redeeming to be like, you know what? The quarterback just didn't play well. It's just you're not going to win a lot of playoff games your quarterback plays poorly in. It's never going to be, man, Jalen was just like that moment was way too big. He was doing stuff I've never seen him do because, it's a playoff game. He's forcing a ball into triple coverage because he's panicked that the Eagles, had to punt their first 3 drives or something like that. Like it's it's never going to be that. And I am so relieved to like know that my quarterback's not going to have like a sheer utter meltdown in the playoffs because he can't handle the moment.
I agree. Now let's just I kind of wanted let's talk about like a lot of the discourse, and
Yeah.
then we can kind of maybe talk about like where the Eagles stand to kind of wrap up the show. So a lot of
Mhm.
the discourse coming that I see coming from this game is that Like Jalen Hurts is never going to get his flowers until he wins like 2 or 3 Super Bowls. From
And even then,
because what's that?
he might not. And even then he might not because
Well, at that point, you're
he's
just a hater
he's
and
being
you're an idiot.
well, and I think that's just a little bit of what's happening
Because
now. I
like
mean,
because
people are
like
still saying
because
he was
you
carried.
mentioned Jalen Hurts didn't shrink in the moment. Like Josh Allen had the ball back, had the ball down 3.5 minutes left, and everyone wanted to blame everyone but Josh Allen. And I kind of and at that, but like if you watch like just rewatching that game, like the highlights and so, like the key plays, like Josh Allen doesn't pick up on the blitz Spags call. Jalen
Yeah,
Hurts is
and
picking up on almost all of his blitzes,
yeah,
right?
even if it's like it's too loud, you can't change the protection. At least you know it's coming. And you're like, okay, I see where it's coming from. I know I have answers like
Well, no, well,
here
quarterbacks
quick.
have like hand signals or like the O line's gonna go like tap the other guy like, hey,
Yeah,
like you know what I mean? Like to me, like this is where I think Jalen Hurts' ability to watch film and like work on like the non arm
the
talent
preparation
things
aspect. Yeah,
is he's way better than I think Lamar and I think Josh Allen in that perspective because I feel like Lamar and Josh Allen rely too much on their talent and their ability to bail them out.
and shit, it works a lot, but not in the big
Yeah, it bails
moments.
you out against the Cleveland Browns and like the Steelers, Michael, but it's not going to bail you out against like the
Kansas City,
Chiefs or the
no, or
Eagles.
each other. Like you know, when they're playing each other, it's not going to go
Like the
well.
Bills basically beat the Ravens because the Ravens beat themselves.
Yeah, Lamar had 2 bad turnovers. Mark Andrews had a bad
I mean,
turnover.
when the takeaway from the Ravens loss is the tight ends getting death threats for fumbling for like that.
Yeah, it's just a lot of the discourse, and you tweeted it. It's true. It's if social media has done a lot of damage to sports talk, and a lot of it just goes into like discrediting a player for winning when it doesn't look a certain way. Like people would be saying, "Oh, if Marino was like you said, if Marino was on the Niners, he'd have just as many Super Bowls as Montana." It's like, okay, what the hell are we talking about? Who cares? Why does that matter? Why, you know, 18 different quarterbacks could have won a Super Bowl with the Eagles. I disagree. I strongly disagree with that, actually. I don't think many of them could have won a Super Bowl with the Eagles. I think a few of them could have, not many though. You know, I am not positive that 18 other quarterbacks in the league can live up to the moment the way that Jalen Hurts can. I'm not positive about that because I haven't seen it yet. I don't know what it looks like for them. Joe Burrow gets so much credit for making a Super Bowl. Where you want to talk about getting carried, his defense was unbelievable in those games. He's getting bailed out, throwing game-losing interceptions because Tannehill throws one right back to the Bengals. It's like these are certain plays that get forgotten in whatever narrative talk because everyone loves Joe Burrow and everyone loved him in college, that he played poorly in those games. It's not that it was like, oh, the stats didn't show what. No, he played like ass. He's turning the ball over in the crux of the game, but because his defense was playing out of his mind and his rookie kicker was making like 58-yard field goals consistently, he was able to get to a Super Bowl in which he didn't play that great in said Super Bowl. He played fine, didn't play great. His biggest play of the game was a missed offensive pass interference call. Like, I I know that Joe Burrow, he did it in college or whatever, but I've also watched him choke in the playoffs. I've watched Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson get blown out in the playoffs. I saw the only time Jalen Hurts got blown out in the playoffs 2 times by Tampa Bay. One time was against Tom Brady and his first career NFL playoff game with the 2021 Eagles, who I thought were one of the most frustrating teams to watch. I did not enjoy many moments from that season at all. And last year, in the midst of the worst collapse with the 30th ranked defense, I'm sorry. All these great quarterbacks that everyone likes to talk about all the time, how many of them are going 11-6 and making the playoffs with the 30th ranked defense in football? Not many are doing that. I'm sorry. There's Jalen Hurts
Jalen Hurts did that last year, didn't he?
is a extreme, like, floor raiser. He will make your team baseline, like, at the very least, like a 10-win football team. He is good enough to he just makes winning plays and constantly makes winning plays. He's not gonna blow you away with some otherworldly throws or great plays with his legs or whatever, but he is going to make big time throws when they matter most, and he's going to put a team in a great position to win and get points on the board when points need to be put on the board, and he's just a winner. It's just like it's so cliche or whatever, but it's just true. He is a winner.
Would you like to hear Dan Marino's playoff stats since he's kind of like my comp for like the Josh Allens and the Lamars?
Sure.
Josh Allen in his sorry, Dan Marino in his postseason career, he played 18 playoff games. He has a career playoff record of 8-10, appeared in one Super Bowl. He threw 32 touchdowns in 18 games, and he had 24 interceptions. Now, let me pull up
Dude,
his
24 picks, man. I'm sorry. Like,
well, yeah, and like it was much easier to intercept passes because the defense could be more physical, but that's pretty bad.
I
And
mean, you're going
then
to pick a
let's
game.
let me.
Like,
I'm gonna pull up his fumbles though. That's a big one. That can't be. That's not rule controlled, right?
yeah,
So, fumbles. He fumbled 9 times. It's not showing me how many times they were recovered by the
you probably got to
guy.
go game by game, but
But
nine
like in other
fumbles,
words,
man.
like Dan Marino just was not a good playoff quarterback. I'm sorry. Like you can't.
No, and
Now
listen,
I'm gonna pull up a guy who
playoff record for quarterbacks and for anything, it's usually going to be right around 500. It's very rare to have an above 500 playoff record because if you are, you're just winning Super Bowls constantly, like see Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, and Mahomes and stuff. But like under 500, is clearly, you're losing more than you're winning. So, and
so can I
a
now,
lot of
Michael?
turnovers.
Can I pull up now? I'm gonna pull up Joe Montana.
Oh,
I'm gonna pull up his contemporary. You know,
okay.
Joe Montana played in 23 playoff games
Not
with
many
a
more.
16-7 record,
Wow.
4 Super Bowls wins, 45 touchdowns, and then
Holy shit.
21 interceptions. Now let's pull up his rushing stats because he also was kind of a runner. He would run. He had two
Damn.
rushing touchdowns. He wasn't. I guess he didn't run a whole lot. But like my point being is that Dan Marino has thrown 180 more touchdowns than Joe Montana, and yet who do we regard as the better quarterback?
Joe Montana.
By the way,
Listen,
I love that tweet where that guy snuck in Justin Herbert.
yeah, into
Chokey
that
McGee.
conversation. Yeah. It's just until they prove to get it done, and it's like, you know, not turning the ball over. Like that is a that's a humongous like aspect of it. Is just not giving free possessions, especially to a team like Kansas City. But oh, what a game, man!
Does
What
it?
a game!
Do you want to get to the point where you want to throw like I don't know? You see Vikings fans slandering Hurts, who are like, "Listen, you ringless losers!" Like
Yeah, I'm gonna start throwing it out, man. We got two. 2. How about that? 2 in 8 years. Jesus, man. Did we
I
ever
do
think?
feel like though, like as annoying as the hate is, like it just is more. It's
Great.
just like it's like more gasoline adding to the
Oh,
fire.
I love it. I'm at this point, I'm welcoming it. People are very mad that they were wrong. They gathered their popcorn and sat an inch away from the TV praying Jalen Hurts would lose. All they wanna see is Jalen Hurts lose and for it to be his fault. That's all they want.
Why do people hate Jalen Hurts so much?
Jealousy, I think, of not only him
Like it's
as a
obvious why.
person.
Like I saw like Bengal like from YouTube, the guy that plays
He's a
Madden.
Giants fan.
He's a Giants fan. He's supposed to hate Jalen Hurts. He should not be. If he's praising Jalen Hurts, he's not gonna lie. It's kind of loserish, right?
It's like, listen, if you're trying to be some sort of analyst, like that's one thing. But it's like you look at, you know, people across the league, whether they're jealous of like him as a person, like I hear people like derogatory calling him Mr. Perfect, and it's like, okay. But I think also they are jealous of just his the Eagles. They're jealous of the Eagles. They wish that their favorite quarterback had a team that was constructed and built like the Eagles. They wish that, you know, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson or, Justin Herbert, whatever team of these people are fans of, had AJ Brown and Devonta Smith and, Saquon and this great O line and whatever, whatever, whatever. And they just they wear those hate colored glasses that do not allow them to see all the things that he is so good at and all the things that he does to keep this team afloat and going. And they just choose to ignore it. Like, the leadership qualities. Not saying those guys are like bad leaders or anything like that, but that guy is talk about like leader of men is one of the best in the league. And you know, he's got to listen to all year all the crap. No other quarterback's got to listen to all the crap of, oh, do they have beef with their number one wide receiver? Oh, do they have a beef with the head coach? And oh, is there a divide and like he's not that good. Jalen Hurts hears all that garbage and he doesn't like blink. He doesn't care. He's been dealing with this whole life. They're telling him at the combine, would you ever consider playing like a Taysom Hill sort of role? Would you ever consider switching a position? He's like, no, I'm a quarterback. I'm like, he's had to deal
It's
with
pretty
such.
amazing. It's like the 20. It's like for like a lot of black quarterbacks, a lot of them had to deal with like the whole like you're not smart enough to
Hmm.
be a quarterback. Like you never heard like people say about Baker because he's a turnover machine at times.
Yeah,
Baker, would you consider playing wide
tight end.
receiver?
Yeah, no, they don't. No one ever. No, and that's a totally. You're right. Like it's a total.
By the way, Jalen Hurts, first Lincoln Riley quarterback to win a Super Bowl, was considered the worst out of all of them, right? Remember that? Caleb Williams,
Baker.
Baker, Kyler.
Yeah,
Stayed
considered the
three
worst.
guys.
Considered the worst. I think like these people just can't fathom that like Jalen Hurts is as smart as he is as talented as he is, as successful as he is, and that he hears all the hate and he doesn't blink once. You know, he's got to hear that he's not this good quarterback and he gets carried and he doesn't once give out a statement that shows that like, he's jealous he's not getting the credit or he's annoyed that, you know, whatever, to keep the main thing is like the most real mantra that he lives by and clearly this team lives by, that it's like he doesn't give a flying anything how this team wins as long as it ends in a win. And you got a Super Bowl out of it. And this team's hungry for more. All of them are. You're already thinking about it. Jalen's ready for next year.
Yeah,
AJ's ready
and
for
after the
next
Eagles won
year.
their
Like,
first Super Bowl, the team and I think the organization was like, I guess lapping it up. But you heard like stories about Brandon Graham was like 25 pounds overweight because he was going to all those banquets and was just not training.
yeah, like the first Super Bowl was for the fans. That was for the fans. That was for the city. That was for generations of Eagles fans who had never seen the team win a Super Bowl.
Like our grandfather who
Yeah,
passed away
that's
in
who
2001,
that
like
that's who
your
that was
dad,
for,
my dad. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you grew like, that is for every fan of the Eagles, every person in Philadelphia, the city, all of it. And the team, like, looking back, hindsight, you look back at that team, it was obviously a great team to win a Super Bowl. It wasn't some sort of, like,
Juggernaut.
juggernaut team. Like people are like, oh, if the 2024 Eagles and the 2017 Eagles play, it's like, dude, Vic Fangio would have had Nick Foles in hell, man. Like he would
See,
have.
that's so like this is my comp for the 2017 Eagles. This is my comp. If the 1993 Phillies won the World Series, that
Yes,
is the 2017 Eagles. You had
yes,
Alshon Jeffrey had like a really monster year, despite being like
dude,
basically like
Nelson.
an overweight, like drug test failing guy on the Bears. He
Yeah,
underachieved on the Bears.
yeah,
Torrey Smith was at the end of his career.
dude,
He
Nelson Aguilar had the most like random
good year.
resurgence of a career. Like this guy was a step away from being cut the year before, and had a great
Like Chris
season.
Long was like, a
End of
rotation
his
guy.
career.
Like you had like Michael Kendricks
Hmm.
who was a
Jordan
bust for
Hicks
most of
got
his time with
hurt.
the Eagles.
Bro, Donnell Ellerbe was playing meaningful snaps in the Super Bowl for the Eagles. You had like a
Big
ragtag group.
V played really well the second half of like
Yeah,
my point being you had a lot of guys who came out like way more guys who came out of nowhere to have like career seasons like LeGarrette Blunt.
well, I mean, like
You
Zach
basically had
Bond,
like a lot
but
of veterans near the end of their careers had like career years,
had
kind
like
of like
one
this
last
happened on the
hurrah.
'93 Phillies.
Yeah, it was one last hurrah for a lot of those guys, and it was, you know, breakouts for other guys and all that. Yeah, totally. 2017 was for the fans. It was for the city. That team was not constructed for sustained success. The only way that that team was going to have sustained success for years to come would have been paired with elite quarterback play. That team required like top 5 quarterback play in order to be as good as they were when they won the Super Bowl. That's what it was, and it's what you got out of Carson Wentz in 2017 and Nick Foles when he took over. Those 2 combined for top 5 quarterback play in the biggest moments, and that, they won a Super Bowl off of it. Years after, Wentz never really was the same after the knee injury. Foles came in again, but, like, he wasn't as good as he was, in the year prior, and you just never had elite quarterback play again, so that team was never really going to win anything again. This team won. It's obviously the city, the fans, whatever, but this championship was for the players. This was totally for the organization itself and the players. It was for Nick Sirianni to get all the people off his back. It was for Jalen Hurts to get all the people off his back. It was for Devonta Smith to continue what a legendary football life that he's having. It was for AJ Brown to get the people off his back. It was for Saquon to have a storybook like fairy tale type season finish on a high note. It was for, Brandon Graham in his last year probably, and he's going to go retire in the sunset. It's for Zach Bond, who again, another guy that was, you know, one step away from just calling it quits and retiring to being an all pro, would have been a defensive player of the year talent if he was Fred Warner, you know, and coming out. It was for Oren Burks, who was the reason arguably a team lost the Super Bowl the year prior, to come in relief and play incredibly. It was for Slay, who, you know, great corner in an awful franchise, forever a terrible franchise, the Detroit Lions, stuck there, getting traded to the Eagles, and his first year being the worst Eagles season in such a long time, and a lot of people scapegoating him, saying, "Ah, this guy's nothing," to he's been an all-pro caliber player since coming here. For him to finally get his championship, for CJ Gardner-Johnson, who spent a year away and was injured, to come back and finish the job, for these all the Georgia kids who won at Georgia together, winning at the next level together with the Eagles, for Jalix Hunt, the rookie, just we'll take a shot in the dark draft pick to dominate the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl on their offensive line. It's it was for all of the players that had to listen to all the crap. Mekhi Becton, who was called a bust and all the worst things you could possibly hear from that awful Jets organization, to have a career resurgence and play a very, very key role as a great starting offensive lineman. All those guys to listen to all that, and for everyone to just have to respectfully shut the hell
Can't,
up because the
right.
Eagles were that
Can
good.
I bring some just some ancillary things around the team that
Yeah.
we've been reading about for like the last week or so?
Mhm.
I kind of want to talk about. They're big topics on social media that, like, we've been talking about. There's a former player who a month ago was like the mayor of like the city in terms of popularity. Now
Mhm.
it's kind of taken a bit of a hit, and I think we should talk about it. It's my neighbor, because he lives in the same area as me, Jason Kelsey.
Yeah.
This
He's
is a bit
taken
there's a lot of back and forth on this. The whole Jason Kelsey was not happy that the his brother lost the Super Bowl and that the Eagles won. And there's a lot of like takes going out
uh,
there that
I'm
he
s
was upset that they won. He's salty that he retired and they won.
I'm sorry, but the only I'm so serious. The only genuine thing that is correct about the situation is that the Taylor Swift fans have made him into what everyone thinks is, like, annoying or whatever. Jason Kelsey, if Travis was not dating Taylor Swift, would have been so outwardly rooting for the Eagles and also saying, like, "I hope Travis has a great game, but, the Eagles are I'm heavy on the Eagles." And it's basically what he said. It is exactly what he said, and he was called terrible brother. He was called turning his back on family. He's a piece of garbage. He's just Travis is such a better brother to him. That's what he had to listen to from the Swifties relentlessly for like 2 weeks, from the conference championship on to actually Super Bowl Sunday. He had to deal with that. So yeah, he's going to be a little bit more private about his celebrating for the Eagles because he doesn't want to like come at what's basically, a potential, like, sister-in-law or whatever. He doesn't need to, like, combat her and her fans for whatever, so he's choosing to keep a lot of this stuff internal. I don't know. That's all it is. Can he be upset that his brother lost the Super Bowl and seeing him upset? Absolutely. Do I think he was watching the game like, "Oh, this is terrible. I'm so upset." Like, honestly, like, no, I don't think he was watching the game that way. I think he was watching the game really excited, really happy for all the players, all his former teammates, his former, people that he considers his brother, happy for Jalen, all that sort of stuff. I think he was thrilled for everybody. Could not have been happier. And I think he was definitely upset his brother didn't play well and they lost. I'm sure he felt bad, but he's only going these such extra great lengths to be, whatever because of the Taylor Swift fans. There's no doubt in my mind. His podcast account had to delete the post of them congratulating the Eagles, and he had to make up the reason. It's like, "It felt weird, we used all the pictures of me in it, and, like, this isn't about me," and it's like, dude, I thought that was a great idea. Posting pictures of you with all the guys that are on the team winning it right now. I thought that was cool. I thought that was awesome. And you gotta delete it because the Taylor Swift fans were flooding your comments saying how terrible of a brother you were. I'm sorry. That's all it was.
I think some of the people were sensitive that he wasn't like, that's my boy Jalen. I love you. He proved all the haters wrong. All my
Yeah.
teammates, they proved former teammates proved the haters wrong, and they won the Super
Yeah.
Bowl.
I
So proud of them.
he's not bitter that he's not on the team because if he felt this way, he wouldn't have retired. Truly, he wouldn't have retired if he was gonna feel some sort of level of jealousy.
I do think the Kelsey brother that should be criticized heavily, in my opinion, is Travis, the guy that's actually dating Taylor Swift. And I'm going to tell you why, Michael. Have you watched any of the film of the game
Yeah,
of
he
some of
he
of
has played
Travis?
he
He
has
quit.
played
He quit
he's
during the game. He
he did
quit.
not yeah,
He quit.
yeah. He was an old man that did not feel
So
like
I'm
being out
watching that,
there.
Michael, and I'm like, shoot, I was about to put this guy ahead of Gronk, and I'm like, we love everyone loves to rip Gronk. I mean, they made fun of him at the roast of Tom Brady, saying he eats Tide Pods. He's an idiot. He's a dolt.
It just doesn't help that it's his voice, man. He sounds like an idiot. He could say some of the most smartest stuff ever. His voice and cadence just sounds of a moron. But no, I hear you. He Travis, as he's gotten older in his career, definitely has become a bit of a front runner. when things aren't going well, when things are going, like, really badly, you take he checks out sometimes. Um, but, I guarantee if this game was tight, you'd see none of those plays. If this was a close game in the 3rd quarter, you would not see any plays of Travis Kelce just standing around looking, disinterested, almost mopey. Like, you wouldn't see any of that if it was a close game. He became he's a bit of a front runner now. Became a little bit of a front runner. When things are going well, he's jumping up and down. He's all with his teammates and he's loving life. But when things are going a little poorly, he's
Do you know what
not as
I
happy.
don't want to hear from a player when they lose a game? I've got so much other better things in my life to worry about.
I hear you.
I have a
It's
life outside of football. I don't have to worry, and to me, it's sort of like
That sounds like a retirement thing to me.
you know you saw how Jason reacted when they lost to Tampa last year. He was hugging Jeff Stoutland. He was upset. He's like, "This is my last game. This is how we're gonna go. I'm gonna go out. It's frustrating. The whole season was frustrating." To me, it was like Travis looked like he was going through the motions, and when he realized they were getting their asses kicked, like you would have thought that he was like, "Get me off this field. I want to
Yeah.
go."
He said, "I wanna go home." Like, he did not wanna be out there for
There's
sure.
definitely like now there's definitely like the Chiefs fans and the Swifty fans are now
They're
like this
combating,
because it's
yes.
like you're making Travis not focus on football.
Yeah, and it's like they're gonna defend Travis kinda blindly, and, like, Chiefs fans that are like, "Man, I would," love Travis, probably their favorite player,
Well, there's
disappointed
dude
in
like some of like
disappointed in his effort, like, that's just
like
normal, you
Fatty
know?
Patty, the Chiefs troll accounts, like
Right.
you get they're like, "Get this loser off my team." Like this guy won you like 3 Super Bowls, and you're
Yeah, like,
calling
they
him.
and I don't think they feel that way, it's just is what it is, but, yeah, definitely some annoying, pointless stuff that a lot of it is cultivated by Taylor Swift fans, but alas. To wrap up,
Oh, I got breaking news.
is it about the kicker?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, Justin Tucker.
Justin Tucker.
7 more massage therapists coming out, accusing him of sexual misconduct. We'll see how the NFL handles this one. I saw someone say he's at 16 now. I saw someone say like, "Oh, just needs 7 more and he'll get a fully guaranteed contract." So,
I'll say this about Justin Tucker, man. When the whole Deshaun Watson thing came out, those numbers didn't go up as fast. Like
these
with
numbers
Justin
are
Tucker,
climbing.
man.
These numbers are climbing very quickly. Yeah. Very bad look on him. We'll see how the NFL handles this one. But to wrap up, we're talking about, thinking about next year. They're mentioning Saquon's like, why can't we start our own three-peat? We talked about it a little bit. The 2017 team wasn't built for sustained success unless it was going to have crazy elite quarterback play. This team is so very clearly built for sustained success. They're the youngest defense in the league by a wide margin. You got so many rookies and second year, third year players playing such a huge impact, dominating the game. Um, they are built to be good for quite some time, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And Vic Fangio, he's not going anywhere. He doesn't want to go be a head coach again. He'll coach until he feels like he's ready to retire. And for however long that lasts, I think this Eagles defense is going to be the best in the league. Your offense, you got a lot of guys under control. You got a bunch of guys that are in their age prime or entering it. They're built for sustained success. And, the first step to a repeat, you got to win the first one. The next step is the second season and week one specifically. So, with the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, they will be given the honor to host the NFL opener, host the first game of the NFL season on Thursday night before week one. We experienced that before. It was just like the playoff game. It was kind of a disaster because the weather was awful and the game did not start until like 9:30 or something. Like, it
And it
was
was so
ridiculous.
humid. I remember I was
So
drenched
humid,
in
lightning in
sweat.
the area.
That
It
was
was,
my first game back as a season ticket holder.
yeah, that was something. So What begs the question is, who will the Eagles be playing to open up the season? So now we could pull up the Eagles 2025 opponents, and there are some options. We have
Do you love that Jerry Jones was like, "Oh, it should be us because we're the Cowboys"? It's like, listen, you freak. Like, I'm like, Jerry,
most teams.
he is such a whore.
So here are the options. You have the division, the Dallas Cowboys, the New York Giants, the Washington Commanders. You have the Chicago Bears, the Detroit Lions, the Denver Broncos, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Los Angeles Rams. So
There's two
immediately,
teams I think that make a lot of sense to
I
open
think
the season.
I think there's three. I'll say this. One, they tend to avoid the division unless it is like a good narrative
That was
behind it.
the
Like,
conference championship game.
right. Like they're not putting the Cowboys and they're not putting the Giants for sure. They're not going to do that.
What if they put the
Um,
Giants there and the Eagles just win like
they're
35
not they're not putting the
7?
Giants there.
Like, this is a joke.
They're not doing that. They're not putting the Broncos. They are not putting the Raiders. Definitely not. I think you can make somewhat of an argument for the following rest of the teams. The Chicago Bears, I don't think it is going to be the Bears, but I do see the spin. Um, they tend sometimes they look to put like the up and coming team on that game.
Like the
If you
Lions.
recall the Lions playing the Chiefs after they beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl. That was, the Lions did not make the playoffs the year before even, but they came damn close and they finished the year really hot. They were the up and coming team that they wanted to give the shot to, and damn it, they won the game. They beat the Chiefs. The Bears obviously were not up and coming to finish the season, but they got a lot going for them. Ben Johnson, the whole thing. There's storylines there. You can make it work. Although I don't think they're doing that. The next team you can make a pretty good argument for. Um, I'll say is the Lions. Is putting the Lions on there. However, I don't think they're going to do that. I think like last year, for example, was basically what this was Chiefs Ravens opened up the season, rematch of the conference championship game, which I think we're kind of zeroing in on something. But usually, when you have two teams that are, you know, out of division rival, like two of the top teams in the conference, they tend to not want to like do that early in the season. They try not to they wanna try to save that game. If you remember even last year's schedule, Eagles 49ers was saved till December. They want the game, and even this year, Lions 49ers was saved till December. Unfortunately, the Niners were very banged up, very bad team that the NFL didn't get what they want. The goal in doing this is the NFL wants they want a game late in the season they can throw on prime time and for it to have like huge seeding implications,
Eagles
Eagles
Lions would have way
Lions,
more seeding implications.
right? So like Eagles Lions doing it week 1 is whatever, but they'd rather do it probably like week 14 in like mid-December when these two teams are battling it out for the 1 seed or something, and Sunday Night Football, those teams, hopefully for the league, they're healthy and they're hitting their stride, and, this is the clash of the Titans that everyone's looking forward to, that sort of thing. So I think they're gonna save the Lions, if I have to be totally honest, which then leaves the two of the teams that the Eagles beat on their way to their Super Bowl victory, the Los Angeles Rams and the Washington Commanders. So I think the Rams make sense in terms of just a rematch of the playoff thing. You know,
Well,
I know
I know
I'll
this.
get to it. I'll get the you know they like putting the Rams on big spots. They got a little bit of pull. Stafford Cup, Puka whole thing.
Cup's not going to be a Ram.
Right. The issue is that the Rams
Stafford
are
might not be a
entering.
Ram.
Yes, they are shopping some players right now that if Matthew Stafford is not the starting quarterback of the Rams, I think there's about a 0% chance that the Rams are getting that week 1 slot against the
I
Eagles.
would
Um,
unless the Rams, like in
trade for
some
Dak
bizarre
Prescott
scenario, draft Cam Ward.
or trade for Dak Prescott, then
Yeah, but how's that
I know,
the
I'm kidding. But, um, yeah, I don't think it's going to be the Rams because of all the trade talk. It sounds like they're ready to blow this whole thing up. Stafford's mulling over retirement a little bit too. Like, he's gonna play, but feels like it's not, which then leaves us
no
what I think
Stafford's no,
makes
Stafford's looking for a contract extension.
oh, well,
So that would indicate that he is not retiring
I
to me.
guess not. And, McVay was so beaten up after the Eagles lost because I think he was getting the vibe that it was potentially his last game coaching Matthew Stafford, who he is obviously very grateful
Do you
for.
think Matthew Stafford do you think Stafford was like, "Oh, I'm gonna thinking of retiring." He goes home and sees his psycho wife, and he's like,
Never
"All
mind.
right, I'm gonna go back and play now."
Yeah,
Like
maybe. But,
Brady.
like, it would've made sense, Eagles Rams, they gave Eagles Falcons, the opener, same sort of game, the divisional game, that sort of thing.
Fun. You want to hear a fun fact about Stafford
Sure.
and his wife? Stafford's wife's the one that pushed the trade out of Detroit because of all the lockdowns they had during COVID. She's like, I feel like I'm living in prison, living in Michigan, and that's why that was sort of like the catalyst for him asking for a trade.
That's unbelievable.
He's
Okay.
totally henpecked.
Anyways, what makes the most sense, I think, and I think this is what they're gonna do, would be Eagles Commanders for a multitude of reasons. One, it's a division opponent, so you play them twice. So you can, play
Put this
them.
game week one, put the rematch in Washington December again, like you
Yeah,
did.
in December,
Yeah,
exactly. Like, you can have, game that the league is gonna hope has huge division implications in December, the road game in Washington late in the season. You get a rematch of the NFC Championship game. We just saw that was the most recent decision the NFL made was a rematch of the AFC Championship game with the Ravens Chiefs opening up the season. So clearly they're not going to shy away from that. Um, I think that it also, makes a ton of sense with the potential direction of the Commanders franchise. They have their franchise quarterback, Jaden Daniels, very, very impressive, very, very good rookie season. Looking to take that next step. The whole team's looking to take that next step, getting the conference championship game. They have a lot of money. They can make some big moves in the offseason. They could have, Miles Garrett by the time that
I
game
just think
starts.
Eagles Commanders is a fresh rivalry, and I think like
It's a
the
rejuvenated
Cowboys being
divisional
run like a
rivalry.
complete circus. I think the NFL is like we need to push this new rivalry because Eagles
Yes.
Giants is pretty much dead until the Giants can like get out of their own way
Yeah,
and like
the other 2 NFC East teams are so absurdly garbage and poorly ran that, yeah, the league's definitely gonna wanna push Eagles Commanders as the big thing,
it's like when the
and
Bengals got good, it's like, oh, we got to push Bengals Ravens and like
yeah,
Bengals
yeah,
Steelers.
Bengals need to yes, exactly, you're exactly right. So, Eagles Commanders feels like that makes the most sense. You can, you're not ruining, a great NFC matchup because they play each other twice. Um, Conference championship game year before. Commanders are going to have probably some big additions in the offseason, lot of things.
It's gonna
So
be
I
hard in
think
the draft though because they're picking 29th. They're not going to be able to draft like a Travis Hunter or like
no, but I mean they have a lot of money to spend in free agency. You get
they
some
do,
specialists.
and they have some guys they need to keep on their team. Obviously, they
They
got to give
do.
Terry McLaren an extension. They got to give, they got to make a decision on Ertz. They got to make a decision on a lot of guys too. And I think they will. I have a feeling they're going to sign. I hate to say this, but my like way too early offseason prediction. I think they're going to cut or trade Jonathan Allen, and they're going to sign Milton Williams.
Well, that would really suck, I have to say.
It would really suck, but it kind of is like the Adam Peters MO when he was with the Niners was they lose to the Eagles and they're like they signed Javon Hargrave.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, That would suck. We will be seeing, though. I'm assuming it's going to be Commanders. That would, you think about,
I don't think they want to blow the Eagles Lion matchup this early.
no, and you think about, the hostility, that quickly built up between the fan bases, between the teams, a lot of chatter, a lot of talking. It's only gonna get bigger, as
Well, it's
the
but I
offseason
think what's going
progresses.
to happen is you're going to see a lot of people are going to pick the Commanders to win the division because there's
Yes.
never no repeat
No
NFC East
repeat.
winner.
Eagles have a really
And
hard
like
schedule.
Jane Daniels right now, I mean, it's very similar with Stroud entering last year, where everyone's like, "Oh, the Texans are a dark horse team." I think to play in the AFC title game, and they could actually give Kansas City a run for their money, kind of deal.
Yeah,
And I
they're
think
like,
that's what you're going to see with the
Washington made the
Commanders.
conference championship, and they're, why not? Why can't they do
Exactly. But like we'll
that?
see. Like, it's kind of funny that we win a Super Bowl and it's like we face a Dan Quinn coach team the the opening night, it's
Yeah,
kind of funny.
yeah, yeah. He's gonna.
Anyway, thank you everybody for tuning in. We appreciate you listening to us ramble about this Super Bowl post Super
We're
Bowl
just
show.
happy, man. We're
We're just
just
happy.
happy.
We're gonna get back to misery next week when we have to talk about the Phillies and other teams.
You
Getting
mean
back
we
to
can't
misery.
just rewatch the Super Bowl?
No, we're gonna have to talk about the crappy stuff again. But everybody, thank you again. Thank you for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on Fired Up Sports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.